Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. In this video, I want to talk to you about the strength level in the OPT model. Now, the main area you're going to find this in is chapter 21. However, if you do go to chapter 13, it's going to be pretty much the first area where you're actually going to see it in the textbook. So chapter 13 is the integrated training and the OPT model. So they'll give you some basic principles, and this will give you a rough overview. But the real meat and potatoes of what you need to know, especially from a testing perspective, is actually in chapter 21, the OPT or optimum performance training model. So when you're going through initially, you'll get through chapter 13. Of course, you're going to get to the acute variables of training and then introduction to integrated training concepts. So flexibility training, cardiorespiratory training, core training, balance training, plyometric training. And by the way, these are all chapters later on, of course, in the textbook. And then you get to resistance training. And that's where essentially, the heart and soul, I guess you could say, of the OPT model is located. Remember, there's 5 phases: stabilization endurance. Phase 1, phase 2 is strength endurance, phase 3 muscular development, and phase 4 maximal strength. So phases 2, 3, and 4 are the 3 phases in the level 2 strength. Okay, so they have 3 levels, and that's broken down into the 5 phases. You just write them down. You just got to memorize those. It's really pretty straightforward. There's stabilization, there's strength, and there's power. Those are the 3 levels. Okay. And the level of called strength, or level 2, has 3 phases. Power and stabilization both have 1 phase, so it's not that difficult to memorize those. So in the strength phase, you have strength endurance, and that basically follows from phase 1, which is stabilization endurance, right? And so the whole point of the OPT model, or one of the points, is to sequentially move people from a point of low balance, low stabilization skills, get them to develop basic endurance from a stabilization perspective, and meaning that you're helping them to develop isometric. And that's why you learn about the core, body strength, and the other musculature related to isometric contractions that help people to stabilize and balance. And that's what you develop first. And then you move on to getting people stronger. But in the strength level, the 3 phases help you to understand, or at least help you to move people from more of a increase in overall strength, meaning the ability to move more resistance, but to do so in an endurance capacity, and then muscular development. So hypertrophy is then also going to be related to that. And then, of course, the idea of maximal strength, meaning you have already developed enough stabilization, balancing skills. You have enough sort of soft tissue sophistication, so to speak, neuromuscular um, facilitation and sophistication in the strength, or the overall capacity of the soft tissue to deal with heavier and heavier loads. And now you can get stronger and stronger. Ultimately, that leads to this concept of power, which is the amount of work that you can perform over a set period of time. So power has more of a time component to it. And so at some other point, got more videos to do on that one. But in this video, again, I want to focus on the strength level. And so if you look at page, now I'm on back. So that's, by the way, just to give you that intro, chapter 13, and they'll talk to you more about it and they'll explain it. So phase 2, 3, 4, go through that. But the meat and potatoes right now is on page 700, chapter 21. This is the strength. I want to do a brief review of this. If you're already going through the materials, then for sure, you would definitely want to be memorizing certain elements within this particular chapter. And, a little preemptive for you, page 705. This right here is your chart, table 2111, phase 2 strength endurance training. Page 706, table 2112, phase 3, muscular development training. Remember, this is all part of the strength level, right? Level phases. Level 2, strength phases, 3 phases. So that's why you've got 1, 2, and page 708, table 2113, the phase 4 maximal strength training. So understanding the phase 2 component is that takes up a little bit more of your time because it's got the 3 phases in the one level. And so the idea is that you want to definitely focus on memorizing table 2110, so strength focused exercises, stability focused exercise. And so phase 2 um, is noted, NASM is noted for the concept now of doing supersets. So from a purely testing perspective, you got to know, you go phase 1, stabilization, balance, whatever. They're going to have you do a lot more work focusing on the ability to maintain stabilization during the movements that you're going to be doing, right? But once you hit phase 2, or excuse me, level 2, phase 2, which is the first phase in that second level, they got you doing supersets. And the idea with the strength level skill development phase is that you're going to do a strength focused exercise such as bench presses, supersetted, meaning no rest in between that exercise, and a stability focused exercise. Now, you'll notice one is an open kinetic chain movement, the bench press, and another is a closed kinetic chain movement. And you're doing a superset using a strength based exercise or open chain movement, and then doing a stability focused exercise. And these are not all the time, of course, but generally you'll see them as closed kinetic chain movements. And in this case, it's the push-up. So page 703, phase 2 resistance training protocol. And this is kind of the idea, is that when you're reading through this, remember that your ultimate goal, even as you go through these materials, your goal is to get to, let me just show it to you. Okay. Let me just see if I can get that. Yes, there we go. That is on, like I said earlier, page 705. And of course, there's 3 of them in this particular part of the chapter. And so I'm just going to turn my book up like this. And here's what I want you to focus on. When it comes to strength, the strength training level, all 3 of those phases have different protocols. Now, your main focus, however, and this is what I need you to do, is to look at the entire chart. And I know what you're saying because I have people ask me all the time, do I got to memorize the entire chart? And the answer is no. The only thing that you really, and that's the only thing that's going to be different for the most part, is going to be where you see where it says resistance training. Now, follow with me. You got exercise selection, and then you've got your acute variables, your sets, your reps, your tempo, rest, intensity, exercise selection, and then they give you some notes. For the most part, for all 3 of those phases, there's going to be a lot of similarities until you get to your resistance training part of it, right? And so your warm up, self-myofascial techniques, active stretching, cardio, which is optional, dynamic stretching, which is optional. You're going to see very similar, and you can just go front and back, and you'll notice that there's a lot of similarities. And this is the phase 3 muscular development part of that level 2. But what you're going to notice is that on the resistance training row, and that's what I want you to focus on. Look at the resistance training row. In the strength endurance training, you'll notice that their recommended number of sets is 2, 3, or 4, right? 2 to 4 versus 3 to 6 when you're talking about muscular development. Now, let me just run over here to the third one, which is the maximal strength. And now you're at 4 to 6 as well. So you'll notice the similarity, 3 to 6 sets, 4 to 6 for maximal strength. My recommendation is that for sure, memorize and know those basic acute variables on the resistance training part of this chart. I know it looks like a lot of information, but for the most part, it's all very similar. And the only areas that really differ are generally going to be in that resistance training row. So that's really, really important to keep in mind. uh, NASM is basically going to tell you that you'll stay in these phases, right, as long as it takes, and you as the trainer have to make that decision. But you're going to keep people in these phases as long as they need to, and then you can make the sort of the next jump to another phase as they, I would say, max out, right, the protocol that you have with them on the initial phase. So you stay with an individual. By the way, some folks might actually stay in the strength endurance phase of the OPT model for a while. Keep in mind that individuals might not show up for workouts. They might not follow all your nutritional guidance. They might not follow the basic plan. The OPT model is, in one sense, sort of based on the idea that folks will be consistent and do the training the way you have it laid out for them. And if they don't move forward for whatever reason into the next phase, there's nothing wrong with that, right? As long as they are accomplishing the goals that you and your client have laid out. So let's keep that in mind. Page 704 is going to give you phase 3 resistance training protocol. And let me just back up a little bit here with you real quick. When you get to these strength level resistance training protocols, they're going to give you essentially a paragraph and explain to you exactly what you should be doing. And that's basically then what you're looking at on the actual table. So phase 2, the resistance training protocol, it's a hybrid form of training and can be considered a bridge between stability focused training, that's the phase 1, and muscular hypertrophy, right? That's going to be phase 3, basically, right? You're going to get to that resistance training protocol for the muscular development. Okay. Phase 1, muscular training, focus on phase 3. Phase 2 requires the use of supersets. This is the key. Very important to remember. Phase 2 has as an essential part of essential part of the protocol are supersets, and that's where you've got table 2110. And so they'll tell you the first exercises. Now, NASM will tell you do the strength one first and then do the stability one second. Okay. You move into the real world and you want to mix it up a little bit with folks, you can switch them back and forth. The challenge is that if you do the stability focused exercise first, you simply cannot use the same amount of weight, right, that you would want to use, or the level of resistance you'd want to use on the strength focused exercise. So the whole point of doing it strength focused first, stability focused second, is to maximize your resistance load usage. Okay. Just keep that in mind from a purely academic perspective and testing perspective. So, and again, they'll tell you table 2110, you move into the resistance training protocol is for muscular development. And so the idea is that you're not generally just going to use supersets now. You're using supersets in phase 2, but not necessarily in phase 3. Clients seeking to obtain greater muscle mass and improvements in weight management metabolism, they can benefit from this form of training. Because the goal of this phase is primarily hypertrophy, the fitness professional want to increase volume and intensity. And that's why you see when I was mentioning to you that an increased number of total sets. And so the total volume would generally increase. They're also going to give you the tempo. Remember what tempo is. They're telling you 2020 tempo, meaning the two types of contractions and the two transitional parts of the contraction. So on a bench press, the weight starts at the top position. The negative is the first number. The bottom position where the transition occurs from the negative to the positive is that second number. Third number would be, in this case, in bench press, third number would be the positive. And then that last number would be at the very top position before the transition back to the negative. And that's tempo. You know, if you want to, in the comments section below, if you want to ask more and get more information on tempo, I can definitely do a video on that as well. And then, of course, you're moving into phase 4 training protocol. Again, just an overview. It's an advanced form of training, only recommended for experienced lifters and exercises who have worked their way up to this phase. Choose between 4 and 6 sets, 1 to 5 reps. See that repetition range that has been pulled down quite low, much lower than I would ever do with an average client. Never really go any anything below 8, 10, even 12 reps in most cases, depending on the exercise. But in this case, because you're looking at the development of maximal strength, or the ability to push heavier and heavier loads, not power, not the speed pushing that you'll see in like Olympic lifting. No, this is to add more and more weight to to have a heavier and heavier bench, to have a heavier and heavier squat. Okay. That is a goal for some individuals. Generally, it's going to be power lifters, maybe bodybuilders. It depends, but that's kind of the idea, is that those are going to be the main areas that you focus, and that's what I wanted to do this video on. So, very general, broad overview again of the second level, right? The three phases of the second level of strength. If this was helpful, let us know. Write that in the comments section below. Understand if you want more information, more in depth on any areas that we just discussed, just let us know in the comments section as well. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Bye.